Time to have a look through the papers then with the journalist Ella Whelan and the editor of Politics Home, Kevin Schofield. Morning.
Morning.
To the Sunday Times, Ella, looking at Brexit and Labour.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because obviously the Labour Party has been scrutinised by both sides. People like me saying that they're not, Corbyn isn't being true to his Eurosceptic past, but then their members, who are largely pro-Remain, are apparently falling off because of Corbyn's inability to come down either side, whether pro-second referendum or anti it. I mean, it says here in this article that obviously there usually is a bit of a drop-off in membership, but apparently 150,000 members have deserted them. Whether or not that is because directly of Brexit is debatable, but certainly Labour is in a really interesting position at the moment because they've obviously 2/3 of Labour MPs represent leave-backing constituencies. Most of them, certainly Yvette Cooper, who's elsewhere in the Times talking about trying to stop a no deal, ran on their manifestos with "we will not stop Brexit" statements. So they came out quite strongly in saying we're not going to, you know, this whole, the phrase, we respect the vote, we're not going to mess with it. On the other hand, it says here 88% of Labour members would opt for a second referendum. So they're kind of torn down the middle between the voter base, which is, especially in the north of the country, is staunchly Leave and is quite rightly appalled by most of the MPs' push for a second referendum. On the other hand, they are now the party of the Remain middle classes, who are sort of really now gunning for Corbyn because he's not come out in support of a second referendum. So, you know, it's where this is going to go for Labour is very interesting.
And there's financial implications for Labour on this as well, because obviously they had a massive boost in their finances because of these new members and paying their subs. I was speaking to a fairly senior Labour MP yesterday, and he was saying that they're skint, essentially. He says if there was a general election, a lot of talk about a general election coming, if there was a general election, they'd be in an awful lot of trouble because they just don't have the money. And the problem was that
So
a lot of the spending...
for it then?
Well, they're almost being backed into a corner. It's like, well, they've got to be seen to be respecting the referendum, because that's what they've said. So a referendum, their initial referendum, having a second referendum would possibly be seen as going against that. So the only other alternative is we'll call for a general election, let's get rid of this Tory government, etc. So they've kind of got to call for it, but maybe secretly they don't really want one in terms of the finances because they just can't afford to run a campaign.
We have a party that runs under Corbyn under the slogan "for the many, not the few," which is directly, its MPs are directly voting against the many's wishes in support of the few, the elite. I mean, I think what Labour MPs and many Tory MPs don't seem to understand is that your average voter, like my dad or my mum or anyone out on the street, doesn't have connections with knowing what's going on in the civil service, doesn't get to make TV programmes about Brexit, doesn't get to write articles, doesn't get to go into Parliament. They have no voice apart from putting that X in that box. And in people who are supporting a second referendum want to remove that only engagement in politics that ordinary people have. I don't think they quite have wrapped their heads around how damaging that will be for democracy. And no Labour MP or Tory will ever be able to claim to represent working people if they push for this second referendum. We were talking about part of me wants them to do it just so I can say, right, we're never trusting you again. On the other hand, it would be the end of kind of politics and democracy as we know it.
Well, that's a very interesting point. If you've got any views on that, of course, Twitter, please. Love to hear from you this morning. We're almost out of time. Just a very quick look at the Sunday Mirror and an aubergine moment, Ella.
I was hoping we were going to get to this
It might be too early in the morning for this, but I just think it's too funny. David Tennant was being put through a training on a new film that he's doing, as sexual harassment training. And it's interesting, he says, you know, there was all the usual stuff of don't pat people on the bum, don't do this or that. But he was shocked to find out that sending a picture of an aubergine or an eggplant in America means a penis, so it's a suggestion of sex. Apparently, this is what young people are.
Look at Gillian's face.
Texting each other.
I had no idea.
And anyway, so
I bet you wish you didn't put that at the end of all the texts.
Be careful what you text about dinner. Essentially, donuts and aubergines
clear
are
emojis.
Yeah.
The things you learn on this programme, ladies and gents. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Let's get a check on the sport.